Hey everyone, welcome to my 5th episode of my Dev Diaries. My name is Chris Cook. I'm a game designer who's worked in the industry for about 12 years now. I actually work in AAA game development in the UK. Lucky enough to work for a company who actually lets me work on my own projects in the spare time, and you'd be surprised at how rare that is in this industry. But yeah, I work for a great company, and like I said, when I come home, I say come home at the minute when I go from my chair to my other chair, I work on my own little side projects. Before they've been pretty much mobile games, little small titles, but last year I really wanted to push myself and build my own big proper title from scratch for the PC. One of the problems about mobile is you kind of really got to limit yourself, and you have to really be careful of what you're trying to put on there, because there's only so much you can do on a mobile because there's tiny little things compared to a PC. But with the PC, I can basically show you I can do what I want as long as I'm capable of doing it, and I can do a little bit of coding as well, but I don't really want to have to learn C++ and from scratch. But I'm very efficient in blueprints and stuff. So this entire game you'll see here has been done just using blueprints. Disclaimer, I am using a save plugin, which has made my life 10 times better. It's the EMS save. I'll try and find it. I'll put it in the description below. I highly recommend that you get it. It was given away for free a while ago. I think it's about 60 quid now. Definitely, it's one of the best plugins I've ever used. Saved me so much time, so easy to use. It's been great. So those of you who've been following along so far, you might see some changes. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've done a dev diary now. I've been actually pretty busy with a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, the visual changes. The first one you can probably see is the trees. So I really did enjoy the trees that I had before. I felt that they looked nice. They matched the style I was going for, but they were visually noisy. They took up a lot of screen space, so it was really hard to see below them, especially when you've got villagers walking below them and stuff. It was hard to get a sense of density as well with those because they were just so filling. So I got rid of them and I found these ones, and I actually really like these as well. These are using these pine trees as well. It just makes it so much easier and clearer when you're looking from far away, or like looking down. And then when you go to this angle as well, it just looks really nice as well. So I'm really glad I went for these trees. They actually fit with the art style really well, even though they have more detail in. It's actually made me want to go through and change some of these assets as well. So these here, they worked really well with the old trees. Obviously, with these new trees, they feel like they stick out a little bit. Everything else seems to work fine apart from these little bushes and stuff. So I'm going to probably replace them at some point as well. But yeah, I really like these. I think they work really nice. The whole well just feel a little bit different. There's a few other trees I have as well, some birches as well. Trying to combine them just randomly didn't work. What I'll probably do is have either different maps with different trees, or just kind of like biomes. So different areas of the map will have different trees as well. Also, just ignore the level size at the minute. I'm just working in a small map. It's much easier for me to work in something like this. Every time I play the game, it has to regenerate the foliage. I've got to regenerate the nav mesh, and it also just becomes a bit unruly. So there's no real reason for me to, while I'm working in the test level, work in a level much bigger than this. But when I eventually do end up shipping this, I want to make the worlds 6 times plus bigger than what this is. I want it to really feel like an expanse. I also want the player to be able to choose where they start. So for example, at the minute I'm always starting here. I have this path coming in. Probably going to change that so you can choose whereabouts it is, and you can choose based on the natural resources as well. So like fresh water, kind of. I want the sea as well at some point. The amount of trees, the biomes, density of kind of like resources like gold and stone and stuff as well. But that's a modern, much nicer. So the other stuff I've been doing as well, you might have seen these wandering about. But I've been adding a bit of livestock and just general life into the level. So these are cattle and cows, and these are going to be, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with these yet, whether these are going to be inside farms that you can keep, or whether these actually work with a hunter's lodge. I'm thinking maybe I'll add some wild boars to work with the hunter's lodge, and these like actually instead they'll work on farms, so maybe I'll have to put like fences down and they'll just be on the farm or whatever. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, yeah, these are right now are just a really simple AI. I'm doing some clever trickery to get them to move into a herd, where I basically have this object which moves around the level. So every so often on a timer it'll just jump to somewhere random. It's a slow timer, but the idea behind it is that it sends its position to all the cows, and then when they next run their behavior tree and find the next random location, they basically go, where is a random location but around there, and because they all do it at different times, it looks like, you can see here, it almost looks like they're moving in a herd. It looks like, the front guy goes and then these guys want to stay with them, so they're moving, and it's actually really, really simple, and I think it looks really, really good. Got it as well, so when they're stationary, they're eating. At the minute, because they're all eating, I don't think it looks as good. I want to make it so it's a bit more random, and do other stuff as well. And they also like to climb rocky outcrops, which is great, I guess, as long as they don't fall off. But yeah, that looks pretty cool actually. It doesn't work very well when they're moving in ahead, but yeah. And then yeah, birds as well. So we now have birds, and you can probably just see these if YouTube pressure isn't too brutal. And these ones right now are just kind of cycling the town centre. But what I do have, but is when you take down a tree, they'll also fly out of there, but I want them just spawning a lot more organically as well. So they'll be just around all over the place. I also want these to be fed by Niagara as well, and I want them to react with the world. So for example, they might perch on a house, and then if you tap the house, they'll fly off. I love that toy box type feel, and that's something I really want for this as well. I've got it a little bit in the minute with the trees. You can kind of interact with them, and then stones anywhere, you can kind of let you see, kind of just moves a little bit as well. Resources as well. If there's a resource around here, you can actually flick them, so you can like tap them and they'll flick away and stuff. Just to get that toy box feel. So I want it so houses, when you click on them, click on the door and the door will swing open, click on the windows and it'll make like a tapping window sound, and again if you click on it, if anything like the birds are on it and stuff, they'll start to fly away and just really make stuff feel alive. And then yeah, I've done some extra changes to the visuals again, just foliage, field of view, camera angles, lighting as well. Updated to 4.26, so I got rid of the atmospheric fog because I didn't work with the sky component. Apart from that, 4.26 has been very successful. There hasn't been any issues that I've encountered so far, which has been really, really good, because usually when you upgrade to the new engine version, there's always some issue. So that's been really, really good. Gameplay wise, I'll show you some of what I've been working on now. So one of the first things is character, stats, attributes, job levels, hunger, tiredness, all this kind of stuff. My overall aim with this game is to have a game that really feels alive, and I want players to be more concerned about the villagers and the people living there than just creating a copy-paste city plan as kind of like a lot of the city builders. I want it so that people are having to react to events that go off in their village and deal with them, and that will change how they play, how everything's going on. You can make the most efficient village in the world, but then something will happen inside that village which will just mess everything up for a couple of days, or change something, or make you rethink how something's going to play out. And I don't want that to play against the player. I don't want players to get frustrated, but I want that kind of constant reaction and stuff. And it's not always about creating the most efficient village. It's more about just creating a village that works well for you and your set and your villagers. So you can see here we now have these attributes here. So these will actually feed into certain jobs. So for example, a blacksmith requires strength, so the higher your strength is, the higher your productive output. Charisma, that'll be good for being like a landlord or whatever. Intelligence, that'll be good for being a teacher. Leadership, that'll be good for, I want stuff like mayors of the town, maybe priests as well, stuff like that. So they actually improve that. So if you're a really good mayor, maybe they collect more taxes or something from the people and give you more gold. We have these here. These are traits. These are going to be random, but they can also be passed on along bloodlines as well. So this one's a common one, but you can get like uncommon, rare, and legendary traits as well. So these are really rare. And these can really affect like a job, so you really want to look out for these. You kind of get rid of your villagers if you feel like they're not really giving you much because they don't have very good traits. And also when people come and ask to live in your village, if one of them's got like a legendary trait, then you want to get them straight in. And then the other thing is the job level here. So you can see this guy is a level 1 blacksmith. The levels go up to 6, and they get experience every time they do that job. So the more times that they do their job, the higher and higher it'll go. And what this does is actually feeding back into the productive stuff, so they become more productive as well. I also want it so they can fail when they're a lower level, a lot more when they're level 0. So the idea behind it is level 0 to 1 is basically, you're learning a new craft from scratch. Nobody's going to learn it and no one's going to be able to just do it. They can't just do blacksmithing without having an understanding, or at least like let go what it is. So if you don't have someone in your village who is a blacksmith, that initial training from 0 to 1 is going to be a slog. It's going to be hard. You're probably not going to get any kind of resources, and you're really going to be living at deficit for a while. But then once they hit level 1, they have like a basic grasp and understanding, and production will like kind of shoot up. And then going from from level 1 to level 6 is kind of like an exponential curve. So level 6, someone might get there by the end of their life if that's all they've been doing, and maybe if like special events in the game also help trigger like more XP, and increasing that. But like a level 6 blacksmith will be knocking out tools and resources and stuff like there's no tomorrow. But then the problem is, like, once he dies, or if he leaves because he's not happy, or something happens to him, he gets injured, then all of a sudden you're going to have this problem where you adjusted your village to a certain amount of production, and all of a sudden that production has been changed, and you need to prepare for that and change for that. So that's what I mean about throwing kind of spanners and wrenches in the game and stuff. It's really kind of going to make the player adjust and react. And also keep an eye on it as well. If you see that your blacksmith is like 40 years old, which is pretty old for back then, you may want to think about like, I need to prepare for like when he goes or whatever. Maybe train someone else to also be a blacksmith in the background as well. Might even look at in the future of like almost have like apprenticeships and stuff. I know that's a big part in medieval times. So maybe someone can be an apprentice where they don't actually produce anything, but they do get the job XP. So then when you become old enough to work, they all of a sudden they have that kind of advantage. Cool. So I'll show you how that works as well. So if we just as an instant build, and then blacksmith, just place this here, and then we'll just decide it's going to be a blacksmith. So now he is a blacksmith, and he's going to go off there. Speed up a little bit. So you'll see that when he goes there, this will start ticking up. So it only ticks up while he's actually crafting or doing the job. So you can see here it's actually going up. And here you can see the settler output is at the minute 6. And that is basically taking a selection of these stats that matter to this job, like combining them together. And that's the amount of productivity that he's knocking out every turn. I want that to feed into more stuff. It's like chance of mistakes and chance of the items being maybe like a rare quality or whatever. I've also got this notification panel in here, so you can see he's now a level 2 blacksmith. Obviously that's much quicker than what it should be, because I'm in the middle of development. that should take a long time. But now he is a level 2 blacksmith, so he is substantially better than everybody else in the village at being a blacksmith. So you want to make sure he stays in that job as long as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much, and you can see like settler output is now going up to 9. Again, I need to play on these values at the minute. I'm just doing a simple equation where it's just this times 3 added on to I think it's like strength plus 1 as like a base value, and then any kind of traits. So that would give you that value there. So yeah, that's that. I've also been looking at the houses and residents and stuff. Before, it was basically you would put a house down and it would immediately fill that house with whoever needed a house in the world. So just quickly just put as many people in there as possible. And the only thing that you were really bothered about was having enough rooms in your village for settlers. Again, I'm changing that because I'm focusing more on the settlers themselves. And the idea behind it is that if we have this house here, nobody at the minute is assigned to it, and we want to really think about who we're putting in here. So, for example, this guy here, can I click on him? Godwin. We can assign him to this house here, and now he is assigned there. But here, for example, maybe this guy actually has a love interest for somebody in the town. He might already have a wife. And these things that you'll actually see when you click on it, it'll all be like relations with other people in the village on here. So what you might want to do is assign the person he likes or has a love interest with, or his wife, in here, and then that'll enable them to, if they're not married, it'll enable them to build that relationship up to a certain point where they ask to get married. And then if you have a church, you can then do the marriage event. And the marriage event is again something else that the player has to decide to do. And if they do that, everybody kind of like drops tools for a day, doesn't do anything productive, and they'll have this big event where they get married and like a party will go on in your village, and everyone's morale will increase for like maybe a couple of days or whatever, but you're going to lose a whole day's worth of production, which might not be very good in the middle of like summer or autumn when people are trying to harvest crops and stuff. But then once they're married and they're living together, then they can do stuff like they can create children. So again, keeping these two together means that when they're in the same house and it's nighttime, they have a chance of making children. And then again, you can choose what you want to do with those kids. So I really want to make it let the player kind of choose what they want to do. I'm tempted to make it so children always have to live with their parents, but the other option is to make it so that you can place them where they want, but maybe there's some kind of like really negative effect that if you place a child that is away from the parent under a certain age, immediately like the parents become immediately unhappy, the child becomes unhappy, maybe they threaten to leave the village and stuff. But I really want the players to play how they want and come up with their own stories. And again, it's meant to be funny and comical a little bit as well. It's not meant to be super serious. So maybe like you can have like a little hut over here, and you can build this story that you want to do yourself with this guy living on his own, away from everybody else, from birth and stuff. And again, if you want to do that, that's up to you. I like letting people play how they want to play. So I haven't quite decided whether I want to enforce that kind of stuff yet. But yeah, going on relationships and stuff as well, it's another thing that I want to delve into. Again, this is what this game's all about and stuff. And this guy, for example, if he's living with his wife and his wife has an affair with somebody, he won't want to live there anymore, and immediately it'll tell you like he's not happy living there or whatever. And again, you can make decisions where you maybe kick the hair out of the village, maybe kick hair and a lover out of the village to raise morale, or maybe you kind of go with it and move those two in their own little house and they actually create their own family and stuff. But you really want to kind of separate these two up. So if you only have one house and those two are living together, you have a choice. You're going to kick one of them out and then homeless, which then really kind of dampens the mood and reduces the productivity and stuff, or then you choose to build another house and you separate them both, but again that's resources and time and cost. But again, it's up to the player how they want to react to these events and go with them. There might be a benevolent leader who really kind of like listens to all the needs and wants of their villagers and makes sure that everything is looked after, or they might be the opposite and rule with an iron fist and go, well no, there's no more resources, just get on with it, live together and just be a little bit unhappy for a while. But again, yeah, it's up to the player. Cool. So what I've also been working on. So yeah, some other stuff as well, as you can probably see, is the UI. I've started moving over to this new UI. In fact, I'll show you the version I've been working on in a minute. But this, I created a mockup in Photoshop the other week. So again, it's halfway brought over at the minute. I want to go for this really kind of clean and minimal style. I'm trying to find the best way to actually bring it over from Photoshop into Unreal, like how to cut it up and also keep it nice and clear, especially if we let players play with a high resolution. need to find a way of letting people play, this on like a 4 or an 8K monitor. But these actually scale up nicely and don't look weird, and same going down as well. As you can see here, got some really nasty edges here because I brought this in and it was not quite big enough, and when I scaled it up, it was, just giving these artifacts. So you need to find a way to bring all this across to make it look nice. I want to go for this really nice kind of like, text in the middle of the screen, like quite hard to see. It's just kind of like there, and you probably don't notice it all the time, but when you want to, you can see it. But I'm well aware that that's an accessibility problem, and there's a great video from Epic the other week about accessibility and stuff, so that's actually quite high on my list of things to look at when I get a bit further on in development. So I'm going to have options to move all this onto different backgrounds or different locations based on any accessibility options that you enable. But yeah, I'm also a big fan of just letting people play how they want to play as well. So with the accessibility options, I'm going to do all sorts of stuff and let the players really play how they want. Maybe add it so change life expectancy, change the amount of disasters that occur, and illnesses and stuff, all that kind of stuff. Cool. Yeah, let me just jump over and I'll show you the UI that I'm working. So this is the UI that we can see. This is the mockup that I got at the minute. So there's a game called Among Trees that I've been watching a little bit of on YouTube, and I really, really love their UI. It's really, really nice. Obviously, they don't have that much that they need to show on screen all the time. Their UI is very kind of situational. You'll interact with a box, and then they can basically fill the whole screen with this is inside the box. This is what you need. The rest of the time, they don't have much information that the player needs to read, so they can get away with actually having very, very little on screen. I tried to do that initially on here, but it was actually very difficult to hide that information, and it was actually a negative experience for the player. But I've tried to keep it that minimal style here. So you can see here what I meant about kind of just having this text just on the side and stuff, just readable a little bit as well. I really love that, just kind of like here. I've got a level for the village as well. So the idea behind this is that your village will level up, and it actually starts, I think, it's like a camp. So when you start, your town center will literally be nothing. It's literally just like some nomads or some settlers or whatever have just wandered into the middle of the forest, and they've just put up the most basic campsite, and they're starting out, and then you build tents, and you build a few other things as well, and it's literally a camp. And then once you've done enough of that, it'll turn into stuff like a hamlet, and then a village, and then a town. I think there's an outpost in there as well, and that'll unlock different buildings as well along the way. So you don't just build houses and a tavern next to a campsite for your town centre. You actually got to unlock them through progress, and then I'll also raise stuff like your settler cap as well, so you can have more people over and a few things like that. But yeah, your village actually has to level up over time. I've got the resources up here as well. I need to work out exactly what resources we have in the game to work out if this is actually a good place for them or not, because there's only a limited amount you can actually have up here without feeling really crowded. I don't know if my old please ignore the mess. So I did actually originally have a different layout. This resource is new. Let's just activate all these. Yeah, you can kind of see that. I actually had it in layers, overlapping. It's all moved a little bit because it's I've been moving about and stuff. But I tried to get as many resources up there as possible, and it became difficult to read and see and stuff. So definitely went against that pretty quickly. Starting to look at kind of so this is the building. So you have your house here, and this tells you how many residents, if it's heated, how much, how long it's going to be heated for before the next firewood needs. You need the next piece of firewood, sorry. The people in your in that house, you can click on them to go to them and stuff. But I've realized since then I need a bit more information as well. So we might have tabs that you can click on. Click on a house, and this is the main information that you need quickly. And if you want to delve in, you press a tab button, and it'll display more information. But chances are 80% of the time this will be enough information that you need. Have the notifications on the bottom right, the objectives on the top right, and then play speed as well. So yeah, this is what the UI should look like. Obviously I need to tweak it again as I do more and more stuff. But yeah, this is pretty much what I'm going for at the minute. So one of the reasons that I was so busy in the past couple of weeks was I actually did a huge overhaul and refactor of how this game works. I've been using structs to basically house all my data, and before I found this advanced save system, loading and saving using blueprints is actually incredibly tricky, especially if you've got a lot of stuff to load. I know I always have to load in a certain order. One of the ways is actually, funnily enough, it's actually the second time I've attempted this game. The first time I got to a point where, in fact I'll throw some videos of it up, but I got to a point where I was relatively happy at the time where it was going, and then as soon as I hit the trying to save it and load it, completely gave up because it was a nightmare. It was impossible. It actually put me off trying to do this again. Second time I did it, I came at it with a different way of thinking, and I was actually using managers to house all that information in a single location. So basically all my settlers didn't have their information on them. They all had it on the settlement manager, and there was an array or a map with each settler, and inside there I had like structs within structs, just housing tons of information. And every time you wanted to get like a value or information or set some data on that settler, I had to find that information in there to go through. And then trying to go through structs within structs is a nightmare. But I was basically doing that just so I could change information all in a single place, and then when I need to save it, I just save that single set of data, and when I loaded it up I could use that data again because it basically housed everything. And I basically recreated everything from scratch and then just repopulated the data after. But it was becoming a nightmare and it was becoming unruly. So I actually used the easy save system. Again, I'll put the link down below. And changed my life unbelievably. It's so good. You can see here. So if I basically go in here and find this, I just take a save game, and I make sure the interface is in here as well, and then it just saves it. And then when I load it back up again, it'll load all this up again, and it'll have all the saved information is just there and ready to use. It's absolutely, it's brilliant. So yeah, bit on that in the settlement manager here. Like I said, I had like maps, and I had like and a map for all the settlers. I had a map for all the buildings, a map for all the jobs, a map for all the tasks, and then trying to go through all there and all of them and marry the information with each. For example, the settler needs to know which house he lives at, but the house also needs to know which settlers live there. I'm trying to go through all the information within like maps and structs is impossible. The blueprints just do not handle structs nicely at all. So I went over and I basically restarted all that from scratch, and I built it into a blueprint component. And this also is really, really good as well. So the blueprint component allows you to have like functions in here as well. So if I need to get, set, or do any kind of like data modification, I can do it in here with functions. Actually, before I used a blueprint component, I actually use an object. An object's really, really good because it's so lightweight. It doesn't need all the transform and stuff, and you can add it on, and you also get all this functionality here. But you can just place it in anything and then just create it and have those functions available. But they don't actually work with the save system I wanted to use. But luckily enough, converting from an object to a blueprint component was dead easy, and I was worried I was going to lose like days worth of work, but it was actually probably lost like half an hour. It was fine. But yeah, in here, like I've kind of organized all the data, so it's all the data here, so it's very easy to kind of like cycle through and find all this stuff. I've made all these private as well, so you can't actually change these variables through another blueprint. You can't just reference this check variable and change it or grab it or whatever. You can't do anything with them. And the idea behind that is I can do stuff like, and if I want to grab this settler's information, like his settler actor, I can always do a check. So every time you grab that, I can just do a quick check to make sure it's valid, and if it isn't, I can just return like a notification, a message that says, by the way, this isn't valid. And then it's so much easier for bug tracking. I don't have to dive in and go like, why isn't it working? It'll just tell me that that's not working and stuff. So I have all these these getters here, get job action amount, get job modifiers, get idle data and stuff. And this will return all the information I need, and all the setters here as well. But yeah, all this is like really easy to just kind of like go through and manage and stuff, and it's really lightweight. It's all in a single place. I can just grab this from anywhere in the game as well. Because it's housed just in a single actor, that actor can just run all its own logic as well. Another problem I had was every time I updated a settler, I needed to kind of go through and find out what had updated and kind of propagate that through to each of the actors, and then rerun their behavior trees as well, because they had some new information. It became just unruly. Sorry, that's my cat. So yeah, you can see here, this basically just does simple, so I cache the manager. So these are the managers in the game. These are still really important. Set any timers for this settler, basically. So we have like hunger timer, tiredness timer, happiness, need sleep, doing like checks here and stuff. But then all the stuff I need to do is all here. And then same with the settlement manager as well. So in here now I also have jobs data, residency data, task data, and idle data. Again, these were all just maps before with just tons and tons of information. And but like I said, like a struct within a struct, trying to set that information on that struct is a nightmare, especially when it's living in a map that you want to try and save. So just basically putting it all in here and actually trying to move away from using any structs possible. I used to love structs as blueprints, but I actually hate them. I try not use them at all, and you got to use them sometimes, and you got to use them for like data tables and stuff. And they're not terrible really, but for handling a lot of data, they're not good. Even if they try and condense that data down to like a bite-sized form, it's just not good. And then when you want to send that information across, if you're sending structs, if a lot of that information isn't needed, you're just sending across like bloated bytes for nothing. And yeah, like I said, like the functions in here are like invaluable as well. So like I can do all the stuff in here. If I want to set like this guy to be homeless, I just run the set homeless function, and that does all that stuff for me, which is brilliant. So yeah, like in here you can see jobs data. Look at this. This just has like all my job stuff now, for like helpers and changing the job capacity and stuff, and event dispatches, and it's all just kept in a nice tidy place. And it also means this isn't as blurred as well, so I've been able to reduce down the settlement manager a lot and really get rid of a lot of stuff in here which just wasn't needed, which has been great. So yeah, like I said, that took like I don't want to say like a week or two of my time, really just kind of refactoring that. It basically bled into every single system and every single act right in the game, so it meant going through and just kind of going through and just sorting them all out. But yeah, if you're looking for a save solution as well, use that easy save system. It's absolutely brilliant. Cool. Jumping back into here, one of the features I've been working on as well is the concept of job times and sleeping times, and this kind of like 24-hour day-night cycle with clocks that villagers actually do stuff in. So for example, each job has its own cycle, its own working hours. So I think the blacksmith is like 9 till 5 or whatever, but then like the landlord for the tavern, he's actually working from something like 6 till 2 in the morning or something. So you need to plan your villagers around that, and also they need to plan their lives around it as well. In the time that they have off when they're not at the job, they will actually do their stat increases. So they'll actually do stuff to like mingle about and engage with the village and stuff as well, but also increase their stats. So for example, if they're not that happy or they're hungry or whatever, they'll go off and do something to increase that. So they might go to the tavern to actually build that up. They might go interact with another settler, they might go sit around somewhere, they might go off to like a campfire and talk. I also want settlers kind of like engaging with one another and actually engaging in dialogue. And then I want kind of like more paired animations as well, where you might get two settlers who just kind of like walk off on a little walk, and again that kind of builds their relationship up as well, but it also increases their happiness and stuff. But these kind of like events that isn't just again like a normal city builders where it's all about just kind of producing stuff or becoming like efficient. I want this to be might not be that efficient, but these two are kind of going off and building this relationship, which is then going to build a whole new storyline of those two characters and your village, hopefully. So yeah, this you can see here we're actually 10 a.m. so he's just started work, and then if I show you nighttime as well, so if we said like 10:30, The people who live here, which are these 4, should then start to walk over here and go in here. So you can see they're already going in here. At the minute they get close, just teleport, but I will actually have some kind of like walking animation after a while. And this is actually another feature that I've just created as well, which is having the ability to have people go inside and stay inside buildings. And this allows me to do stuff like, again, the tavern and the school and stuff. I don't have to have everybody outside to show that someone's in there and working there and active there. I can actually have people walking inside buildings, so you don't have to teach outside, you don't have to drink outside, and I can actually have a lot more people inside a building as well without having to play expensive animations or do anything expensive. So that's really good. So that opens up a lot more doors for me as well. And then if we show like if it's morning time, they'll probably all eject at the same time, to be fair, but later on they won't do that. Yeah, you can see there. I think I actually got one missing. Oh no, there she is. Wow. And yeah, these 2, unfortunately, they slept outside, and that's obviously going to have effects on how they recover as well. So I think that's pretty much it for this update. Sorry, I haven't really gone into the inner workings of how a lot of stuff works. There was quite a lot to get through. Just byproduct of not releasing a dev diary for a while. I'm probably won't be releasing one over Christmas, just because obviously it's the Christmas period, so I'll be seeing family and friends, hopefully, if lockdown doesn't prevent me from doing that. And then I'll probably try and do another dev diary at the very start of the next year. We'll try and highlight my goals for the year as well. But yeah, this week's actually been really good. I actually got approached for a publishing deal already on this, which was completely out of the blue, unexpected. But it was really, really good to get it. It was like an organic search as well. Like someone searched me out for it, which is, super promising at this early stage. There isn't a lot going on, but I have high hopes for this game. I pretty much work on it every night at the minute. So to have someone that interested this early was an amazing feeling to have. And yeah, going on that as well, if you can like and subscribe to this video, really, really appreciate it. It does help the YouTube algorithm, apparently. It helps me, get that kind of organic, natural growth as well, which is really good. But yeah, like any help is really appreciative. Also, yeah, the Steam page is up, so you can go on there and you can wish list my products, so you can get updates about that. Got my website you can go to, and you can look at the blog and stuff if you want to. And I'm also setting up a itch.io account as well, so I'll be on there at some point too, so you can track me on there as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yes, I hope everybody has a really good Christmas. Hope you get what you want. And I will see you in the new year, hopefully with some new exciting stuff to show. Brilliant. Cheers.